how do I know if I'm tax resident or not in France?
To know if you are tax resident or not in France, you need to look at, the tax law, Article 4B. Sometimes, you cannot escape the law. Okay, so 3 criteria here. First one is, do you live in France? You, your spouse, and minor children. Do you live in France? The answer is pretty straightforward, yes or no. If it is no, okay. The second criterion is, do you work in France? Okay. If the answer is no. And the third one is France your center of economic interest? Meaning, is France the country from which you are earning the maximum part of your income? If the answers to those 3 questions are no, then you are non-tax resident in France. Okay? Do you live in France? But if you don't live in France, but you come in France, you go back and forth, and you are in France more than 183 days, if you are living split over 2 countries, then also if the answer is yes, then you may be tax resident. But if clearly the answer is, do you live in France, you, your spouse, and your minor children? No. Do you live in France more? Are you presently, physically present in France more than 183 days? The answer is no. Do you work in France? The answer is no. Is France your center of economic interest? The answer is no. Then you are a non-tax resident for sure.
So I will also get my colleague to just pop. We have an article on which explains all the rules of tax residency, and she'll pop that in the chat box for you now, because that is actually quite a complicated subject for some people. But we do tend to go with the 183-day rule as such for people who have second homes in France. We always encourage people never to spend more than that amount of time in France without at least consulting a tax expert first to make sure that you're not. So assuming that for most French property owners, they are resident in another country, not in France, but they're probably coming in and out of France and they own property in France. Under what circumstances might they need to file a tax return in France?
If the property is generating income.
Okay.
If the property is not generating income, you just will have to pay the taxe foncière and taxe d'habitation in some circumstances. That's it. It is income tax. If you don't have an income, you don't have to file an income tax return. But if you do, then you file a tax return. And if you rent it out, your property empty or furnished, you are earning 2 different kind of income. Okay. If it is empty, you have what we call a revenu foncier. And if it is furnished, it is revenu, bénéfice industriel et commercial. So those are 2 different kind of incomes to do at 2 different forms to file. Okay. And for those renting out furnished, it may be interesting to opt for what you call loueur en meublé non professionnel. That is very tax efficient, whereby the property will be like depreciated each year, and you will have this amount like an expense, which is not an expense, but that will reduce drastically your income, your taxable income, therefore the income tax to pay.
Okay, so that's good actually for anybody who is renting out their French property or letting it as a holiday home in some capacity as well, and you're receiving an income for that. You will need to pay those taxes in France, and you will need to file a tax return for that, but most other people won't need to.